This month's theme, the Misfits. The iconic John Huston, who directed the film, said, quote, "It's about people who sell their work but won't sell themselves. Anybody who holds out is a misfit. If he loses, he is a failure. If he is successful, he is rare." He's actually talking in this case about cowboys who sell their skills but won't work for a salary. But he could be talking about actors. And boy, did he get some good ones for this one. Not just actors, get icons. At 59 years old, Clark Gable had made 65 movies. You know, he didn't want to be in the movies. He didn't want to make movies. He considered himself a stage actor. And the movies, because they were silent movies at the time, you know, over-the-top acting, he didn't respect that. But Lionel Barrymore actually talked him into doing movies because the talkies were starting to gain some momentum and they needed some actors who could, you know, talk. But he always remained very serious about his work. When at the outset of the Misfits, every night he would read the play from beginning to end before he went to sleep. Thelma Ritter, a year younger than Gable, had made 23 movies and several TV series and 5 Oscar nominations by the time they made this film already. She was a rock. Eli Wallach from the Actors Studio started on Broadway, had already done 6 movies and a whole bunch of television before the Misfits, and went on working, as did Thelma, right up until the year they died. Her at 67 and him at 99. So maybe, even though I would say that actors are by definition misfits, maybe for those 3 not so much. But Montgomery Clift, who turned 40 during the shoot, would always be a misfit. For one thing, he was gay, and unlike stars like of the time like Rock Hudson and Cary Grant, people knew Monty was gay. The story is that after Monty's first scene in the phone booth, which had to be done in one take while the other actors were watching him, Clark Gable yelled out, "Hey, a little faggot can act." It was a different time. And then there was Marilyn. She just turned 34 when the shooting began, so she was the baby of the company. Marilyn had a contract with Fox, and except for one thriller at the beginning and then one adventure movie with Robert Mitchum, they gave her nothing but romantic comedies with a whole lot of singing and dancing. And even the adventure movie with Robert Mitchum, she was a dance hall femme fatale. But hey, the girl could dance, and the girl could sing, and the girl was funny. And ask anybody, comedy is hard. But she wanted to do Chekhov. And she told Fox that, and Fox laughed in her face. So what she did is she went to New York and enrolled in the Actors Studio. She was too shy to get up and perform in front of the other people in the class, so Lee Strasberg himself coached her privately, not because she was Marilyn Monroe, but because he did see something special about her. When she got back to LA, she renegotiated an unprecedented contract with Fox that gave her everything she could possibly want except the ability to approve scripts. And they kept giving her the same old fluff. Enter Arthur Miller, another icon. She married him in 1956, just after she'd gotten back from New York, back from the Actors Studio. Her fantasy was that he could maybe write something for her that would establish her as a serious actor. Well, Miller wrote a short story that got published in Esquire in 1957 about these cowboys up in Reno. He'd seen them when he'd gone up to Reno to get a quick divorce. Cowboys that hunted Mustangs and sold them for dog food. guys that had been a noble profession before, but then now doing this. He wrote this short story about them, and there was a minor character in that story called Rosalind. So the next year, in 58, he turned that story into a very stark, introspective screenplay and expanded the part of Rosalind for Marilyn. So the movie was written for Marilyn. It did what it was supposed to do. No way Fox was going to back a movie like that for Marilyn Monroe. Remember that contract I said she renegotiated? One of the stipulations of that was that she had the freedom to work for other studios. So Miller went out with his producer, Frank Taylor, and he rounded up Houston and the rest of this cast. And on the basis of how good the script was, they all read the script and loved the script, and they went to United Artists. So United Artists put it up. Marilyn was thrilled with the cast. She'd worked with John Huston once before, and not in as big a part, but in Asphalt Jungle, and he had treated her like as a serious actor at the time. So she liked him. She knew Eli Wallach from the Actor Studio. Monty and she were friends already. But it's funny, she had met him several years before that, and the first meeting they had was at a 4-person dinner party, and the two of them were in such awe of each other that neither one of them said a word through the whole meal. But they bonded through this film. They were friends before, but they really bonded through this film. And Gable, well, when Marilyn was a kid, she used to pretend that Clark Gable was her daddy. So the making of the movie itself is a novel in itself. The temperature was in the hundreds most of the time up there around Reno on a dry lake bed. Marilyn was already notorious for not being able to make it to the set on time. But in this case, Huston and Miller would do rewrites at night every day after the show, and she'd have to, after the shooting, and she'd have to stay up memorizing the lines, couldn't get to sleep without doing barbiturates, and then she'd wake up groggy in the morning and couldn't make it to the set until afternoon, which pissed everybody off, especially the crew. And as rewrites happened, the character of Rosalind kept moving towards what those other roles for Marilyn had been. In the original short story that he'd written, Rosalind was an educated woman. In the film, she's a high school dropout, pin-up girl, club singer. But at least in this one, Rosalind is trying to escape from that persona, just like Marilyn was trying to escape. But Marilyn and Arthur became more and more estranged as the shooting went on. They divorced just soon after the shoot. John Huston would spend his nights from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. gambling in the casinos in Reno with company money. United Artists had, knowing that Reno was a place and they were going to want to have some, they put aside a fund to cover the company's acting debts. Huston himself ran up a $50,000 deficit on their money, and they had to shut down for a week so that the United Artists could figure out how they could continue financing the film. Marilyn, for that week, decided to fly to Los Angeles to get some R&R. John Huston drove her to the airport, then called up her doctor and her psychiatrist in Los Angeles and told them that her barbiturate problem was spiraling out of control and she needed to be hospitalized. They made that happen, and Marilyn got blamed for the 1-week shutdown. She also has been blamed for Clark Gable's death shortly after the film, that working with her put so much stress on him that his heart failed. It couldn't have been that at the end they shot everything in sequence, so all that stuff out with the Mustangs at the end, if you've seen the movie, all that was shot at the end on a dry lake bed where you could hardly breathe sometimes because of the dust. He did most of his own stunt work, wrangling these horses, really wrestling with them, getting dragged through the dirt, holding onto a rope. That couldn't have been what killed that 60-year-old man. And Marilyn was dead the following year. Some people are born too sensitive for this world. Misfits. And barbiturates are a way to dull the pain. My son was a case like that. He died of an overdose. Books could be written about why Marilyn always had such a hard time getting up in front of the camera. Some kind of pain there. But nobody, she couldn't get up in front of the camera, and yet she lit up a screen more than anybody before or since. I think Yeats said it best. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand. For this world's more full of weeping than you could understand.